Cover! NANI?!
Terry Bogard. That's not Gino. That's not even Sora. Who even cares? Jesus! Get serious!
Take it easy!
It's that time again for everyone to lose their minds over a new Smash character. That's right! Sans, Undertales, and Smash, baby! Wait, what? As a me costume? Then are the leaks true? There's a Sync character in Smash? What's a Sync? And why is this Terry guy gonna Bogard a slot? Clearly meant for Riku's boy toy. Who even is that?
Hey guys, anybody want some snacks?
Allow me to explain. With the announcement that Terry Bogard, one of my favorite characters period, is a character in Smash now, I'm over the moon. I love this man, but if Twitter trends are anything to go by, he's not very well known. And to an extent that's fair, because the lore of fighting game characters are generally spread out between dozens of fighting game intros, arcade endings, anime, and movies. It's all over the place. So, in light of this gap of knowledge, I've taken it upon myself to explain who this man is and why he's so beloved. I've been waiting my entire life for this moment, for something I like to be relevant. But in this video, I won't just give you a boilerplate Wikipedia recitation of his backstory. I'll also go into depth about why this ponytailed, trucker-dressed man is one of fighting game's favorite protagonists. Put on your fatal cutie hats because this is Terry Bogard.
Let's shoot!
Before we get into Terry, we need to understand his hometown, Southtown. Southtown, SNK's legally distinct Miami. Originally a crime pimp-run city. Yes, this is canon. Southtown is a crime-ridden stinkhole with their pimp mayor blackmailing karate dads to be their thugs. However, this pimp's rule is not for long as a rival crime syndicate, the Howard Connection, eventually overthrows him. Now Southtown is run by the world's most powerful and angry bird, Geese Howard. Unfortunately, having your city switch mayors from a pimp to a crime boss bird is a turn for the worse. So, with his newfound hold over the city, Geese immediately gets to work abusing his power. Southtown is even worse than it ever was. The place is like some sort of gladiatorial arena under his rule. Street fights are expected, necessary even. If you want to go to your 7-Eleven for a pizza slice and Coors, you gotta fight through hordes of goons with health bars. All of this embodying Geese's ideals of the weak shall perish. Geese also had some personal business to take care of. Still bitter about his teenage years, he hunts down and finds his old martial arts rival, Jeff, and murks him right in front of his kids. Not even through noble combat though, he kills them dirty. Those children were the brothers Andy and Terry Bogard, and Geese just Batman those two boys. They both swore to get vengeance on Geese, but took very different paths. Andy, channeling Sasuke before he even existed, went to Japan to learn the ways of the Shiranui ninja. This cold-blooded Japanophile also meets Mai Shiranui there, a character which some of you might not know, but are very familiar with. Terry's plan, however, is just to wander the battle streets of Southtown and America as a whole looking for fights at like age 7. Do you know how weak a 7-year-old is? There's this hypothetical scenario of how many 7-year-olds you could kill. It basically shows the immense strength disparity between a child and an adult. You know what the answer ended up being? It's obvious any adult man can one-shot a child, so it's like an adult can kill as many children as they have stamina until they get tired. The thing is, Terry is the 7-year-old that gets back up and says he'll be back. And this mad lad's plan worked. When the Bogard brothers finally return to Southtown as adults, they come just in time for Geese Howard to again host his King of Fighters tournament, a martial arts tournament he holds just so he could go up to the winner and kill them, because they're the most powerful, and no one can be stronger than Geese. But the Bogard brothers just plow through everybody to face this crime boss himself in his koi pond? While Geese wears his hakama? Wait, is that the American flag behind that suit of samurai armor? Oh my god, Geese is not only the deadliest bird, but the world's most powerful weeaboo! But Terry manages to beat him, and a bunch of other baddies. He eventually becomes known as the legendary Hungry Wolf, revered around the world. He eventually becomes older, and a dad, at some point. Yeah, Terry's got an adult son. How many dads can you say are in Smash? But that's the Fatal Fury series. Then at some point, SNK combined a bunch of different fighting game universes into one, into KOF, King of Fighters. And this dude that just learned how to fight on the streets comes up against Snake Gods. Because for some reason, said Snake God wanted to get revived in Southtown, and even though the enemy is a god, and heroes that have to fight him are all either gods or getting their powers from gods, they still ask Terry to come. Again, he's a normal guy, relatively speaking, all because Terry's a man and a huge badass. Oh yeah, Terry fights another god all on his own too. That happened. That's the gist of his backstory. But a story summary isn't quite enough to explain his popularity, why he's so cool. Let's break it all down. So, when Ryu and Ken got announced for Smash, while it was really neat with how much love was put into recreating their original 6-button designs into Smash, I can't say I was too excited character-wise for them. Ryu is the archetypical wandering martial arts guy, whose interests are martial arts and not being mad. He represents a generally stoic, calm, and colder demeanor. Then, you palette swap him into Ken, and you do the most obvious, basic contrast. He's hot-blooded. His kicks are literally fire. He goes yay! Ken is a generic hot-blooded guy. What makes Terry neat is that he's essentially a fusion of hot and cold. He's warm. He's "let's go" during fights. But outside of them, he's just a pretty cool guy that's down for whatever. Which is surprising considering all the shit he's seen. Snake gods, clones, robots, satellite death lasers, more gods. He really just takes it all in stride. Except for that one time he got turned into a chick.
Mai, 何を笑ってるんだ? なんか体に違和感が。No! なんだこれ?
But that was just a dream or something, don't worry about it. At one point, he gets approached by his own clone, and instead of freaking out, he just goes, "Oh neat, what's up dude?" When seeing the edgy, tortured, hot topic anime clone of somebody, he just says, "You look sad," and offers him a hug. He's got that charisma. Terry is truly best girl. Funnily enough, being the more interesting fusion of Ryu and Ken doesn't even stop character-wise. Terry is a video game character, thus his gameplay becomes permanently etched into the perception of the character. Good thing he's an absolutely iconic blast to play. Terry's moves are a combination of the flavors of both Ryu and Ken's moves. Like I said before, Ryu these days has really heavy hits, and Ken has really fast and flashy hits. Terry's moves both hit hard, are deliciously fast, and are flashy as hell, and they're accompanied by the greatest move names of all time. Even if you don't know Terry that well, you've probably heard his cries. Iconic English, conjured up by dudes in a Japanese office, well before Google Translate ever existed. Power Wave! The Power Wave's not your typical fireball, it shoots across the floor like a Roomba from hell. Banaku! You can sock suckers full screen with the Burn Knuckle. And then, the most practical uppercut in the universe, the Rising Tackle. Where Terry just spins on his head like a Beyblade until he helicopters into the air to kick you. Amazing. Then, there's the most iconic of them all, where Terry asks if you're okay. But the thing is, he isn't waiting for a response. It's a setup for getting shotgun punched to death.
Are you okay?
Terry, why are you asking them how they're doing before performing a sudden death move on them? You crazy bastard. So, you got a really cool and satisfying to use moveset. But on top of all that, is the fact that Terry's always been pretty beginner friendly. So, in any KOF game, you can always gravitate towards Terry and feel safe knowing that no matter what the game is, you'll feel awesome. Besides that, I think what really is at the core of what makes Terry likable is that he is a person. It's pretty easy to relate to this guy. First of all, he's a gamer. He enjoys the video games despite being terrible at them. I mean, come on, that's like everyone. That's like every gamer.
Jeez, my baby brother's better than you.
You don't say. Yeah, I guess I'm a little out of
Hey,
practice.
don't go.
Second of all, he's just poor as hell. Again, like Ryu. But it's not necessarily for any monastic warrior monk purposes like Ryu. He just spent his literal entire life fighting, so he has no qualifications for any job. He carries that giant punch bag with him because that's his house. Yeah, the SNK universe was crafted well before the current day of massive MMA stars, with your Mayweathers and McGregors and Pacquiaos or what have you. It's hard to imagine a fighting game character not being rich in this kind of environment. Like if Terry Bogard bust-out-wolfed Mayweather into the stratosphere, with giblets of him flying everywhere, I think people would throw money at that. But nah, Terry dreams of having a stable income. To this day, he can only do part-time jobs to get by. What's more understood these days, in these times, than having no money? Terry's hardships don't end there. During one of his final battles with Geese, as you saw in the Smash trailer, almost falls off the edge of the Geese Tower. But Terry grabs his hand, maybe out of mercy, maybe for Geese to face his crimes. But, just to spite Terry, Geese lets go, and falls to his death, a mad smile on his face. Terry then finds out Geese had a son he just willingly orphaned. So, from then on, Terry, the good dude that he is, raises that kid as his own son. He finally manages to scrounge up enough stable cash for an apartment, and he does a pretty good job, doing it all on his own. The kid, Rock Howard, yeah, kinda messed up he didn't take on Terry's last name, ends up as a kind of Sasuke-ass dude, so it's hard to tell how he's feeling, besides edgy. Terry even occasionally has nightmares about Rock having resentment towards him for what happened to Geese. But even though Rock would never admit something so sappy and sentimental to his face, he clearly loves Terry. And speaking of love, Terry's got no luck in it. No, he's not an incel, it's just his girlfriends have a tendency of dying horribly. Geese tossed his first girlfriend out of a building. Geese are the worst birds after all. He was pretty traumatized after that, never letting anyone in. Then he gets a movie where the entire time is spent breaking down the walls of trauma that have built up inside him so he can love again, to love this new girl. And he does. He enters a relationship and oh, she dies again. Well, double trauma combo. He's never getting into a relationship again. There's actually a girl called Blue Mary, and they seem to both flirt with the idea of being together. But Blue Mary herself also is traumatized by the fact that all her boyfriends seem to die. Thus the name Blue Mary. So, they're alone. Together. Jesus, SNK, can't you give your characters a break? Nope, not at all. You see, the main protagonist of the King of Fighters series, Kyo Kusanagi, is the inheritor of the power of the Orochi. He started off as a Japanese high school student who had to constantly go off to save the world from these apocalyptic events, which coincidentally were always during King of Fighters tournaments, and, as a reward for his efforts, he flunked out of high school. Yep, just missed too many days of school. In SNK, even world saviors aren't free from reality and have to figure out how to live day by day. And that's why they're so great. The hyper-violent, psycho, Evangelion reference Iori Yagami, that's another KOF staple. Outside of King of Fighters tournaments, he just seems like a normal guy. He even hates violence. He's in a band. To contrast, what does Akuma from Street Fighter like to do? Fighting, and fighting certain people. Amazing. SNK, in between all of these games, really takes the effort to make sure all their dozens of characters are as human as possible, to make it easy to imagine what they do in their off time, to imagine them in the mundane. It's a key part in what makes them all so charismatic and relatable and likable. And, all things considered, Terry and the boys seem like a risk, because remember, this is a Japanese game series, and it stars Americans. As a reminder, this is a country that takes All Might, a blonde-haired, blue-eyed man that wears red, white, and blue, and names him Toshinori Yagi, so the Japanese feel safe and secure in liking him. Don't worry guys, he's Japanese. It's okay. Sure, there was Art of Fighting, the series that preceded it, which was also set in Southtown, but the main character's name was still Ryo Sakazaki. But imagine if SNK didn't take that risk, that Terry never existed, never became SNK's unofficial mascot. Maybe they would have played it safe, and that theoretical SNK that never tried to get that Gai Kokujin as a protagonist is completely unrecognizable, or heck, just went bankrupt. They took a risk when they made all of his move names in English and had a Japanese actor shout them poorly, but it still worked out in the end, becoming part of the charm. You know, creators tend to worry a lot about taking risks, about putting themselves out there. They want to emulate the things they love and avoid being the works they despise. Thus, this can force them in a perpetual stasis, where they're never happy with what they've got, where they're afraid of putting themselves out there. At some point, most of the media you enjoy was something that was completely unfamiliar to you. At some point, Pikachu, Link, Mario were all characters you didn't know. Take a risk with Terry, play him in Smash, try out King of Fighters, heck, watch those OVAs, and don't just scoff at the unknown. He might become one of your favorites. That's it for the video. I'd like to thank my sponsor. Oh wait, I don't have any. Well, maybe some of my patrons? Oh yeah, don't have any of those either. Well, I better get going. Looks like my bank account's in the red. It's burning! See you folks next time.